So here's a quick little recap of this year's King of the Hammers, 2023. This video is pretty late. I've been super busy since I've been back with work. So we didn't finish, kind of bummed. I was really hoping for a finish this year. We did about the same as we did last year. We made it to mile mark, I believe it was 92 or 93. And we pulled off early. We were almost out of time. But I was having issues with the transmission. The transmission lost an output seal, and we kept putting oil in it, and basically couldn't keep up with the leak. And this transmission shot. Sounds like it's full of gravel. But on a positive note, this was kind of the first big test for the TRE E-locker in the front, and it worked great. I was super happy with it. It's really nice having the option to turn it on and off. I've always had lock rights in this, which are basically always on. They just do what they do, which can kind of hamper your turning ability. It makes it harder to steer, and the vehicles tend to push a little bit. So being able to turn that locker off and just have a standard open differential was really nice in some of the tight spots. The only thing that was a little difficult for me was just getting used to turning it on and off, because like I said, I've never had a vehicle with that option before. I've always had lock rights. But once I got used to it, it was pretty cool. So yeah, besides the transmission, I mean, this thing held up good. I did break a front sway bar arm. I made them kind of lightweight, and I went a little too light. And then the stability of this thing's pretty terrible without that front sway bar. And there's a trail, I guess it's a fairly new trail called Thor's Hammer that my class had to run through. And we were climbing up on some pretty gnarly rocks, and I don't know if I just slipped off on the driver's front, just slipped off the rock, or if it rolled or whatever, but ended up laying it on his driver's side again, and did a little bit of damage this year to it. It's kind of a bummer. This was a pretty nice hood. Put a good dent in it here, and then a little here, and kind of buckled the cowl, and then a bunch of just scrapes. Hit this, had a dent right here from last year's roll, and actually hit the exact same spot and made it a little bigger, which is pretty funny. Kind of buckled some of the plastic body work. There's a tab right here that's just bent and holding the plastic in. I think that'll all just snap back in place. But really, that's about the extent of the damage. A lot of 90 weight all over the place. What else happened? Pretty much mangled both of my front links. I don't know how well that'll show up, but that's bowed up in this area pretty bad. And then the other side's even worse. So, in the process of building new links. Yeah, you can see that one took a big hit right there. These links aren't anything special. They're just 1 3/4 120, just regular welded seam tubing, and then a piece of 2-inch 120 slid over them, and it's just, the material is just too soft. Strange thing is, both the rear links are just fine, and they're exactly the same. But there was a lot of times where we would drop off of like a ledge, and it would just land right there. When you're going through the rocks in a race, you're not very careful. So it just gets hammered. This took a pretty hard hit. This is 3/4 inch plastic. It's like it's not UHMW. It's like HDPE, I think it is, but dented the tube through that plastic. That's just kind of the price you pay going through rocks at high speed. other than that, did pretty good. Unfortunately, for me in this thing, kind of the limiting factor in this thing doing well, unfortunately, is me. Racing King Hammers was a bucket list thing for me to do. I'm losing my eyesight, and so I don't see real good. And so therefore I drive a little more cautiously in the desert. I don't go nearly as fast as this thing's probably capable of. In the rocks, I'm pretty comfortable, but out in the desert where it's, especially like at noon, you lose, I mean, at least it's hard for most people. You lose definition in the bumps, but for me, it's really bad. And I'm also colorblind, and so a lot of stuff just kind of blends together. So it's hard for me to really drive hard and fast in the desert. But in saying that, this thing did pretty good. I think we averaged, the year before we averaged like 35 miles an hour in the desert. This year we gained a couple miles an hour, and got up into the 50s a couple times. The rear shock tuning I'd done previous to the race really helped. This thing was pretty comfortable. Pretty amazing considering how short the wheelbase is and kind of top heavy it is. Like it works good. I'm pretty impressed. I'm thinking of possibly getting, I don't know, I'm up in the air if I'm gonna do hammers again. After the end of it and the car's all beat up, I always tell myself that's it, no more. But then I get re-enthused and decide to do it. So who knows, we'll see. I'd really rather get into some other forms of desert racing that's a little less brutal, a little less rocks. It's just so hard on this little thing. But right now I'm getting ready to get it all cleaned up and fix all the damage, and then get ready for sand dune season up here in the Northwest. I've also got plans of chopping a whole bunch of weight out of this thing. I kind of went crazy with the tubing. Basically the whole body is framed in 1 3/4 120 wall tubing. So I'm thinking about cutting out basically this whole rear fender area. Just remove all that tubing, and basically the same thing in the front, to where it's really just the cab shape, and then kind of, the main structure of the cage, and then building different fenders that are kind of just hung on a lightweight structure, more like a pre-runner truck. And then I'm working on getting into doing some fiberglass work. So I have another hood that's really clean that I'm going to use as a mold. And so I can build really thin, lightweight, kind of disposable hoods. And then I'll also build some fenders for it, so that all this main big heavy tubing will be gone. I'll keep the bumper and do some kind of a light guard in the middle. But kind of mold some more factory looking fenders, and probably even mold in like a fender flare, so it looks more, try to give it even more of the original Samurai look, which is something I always wanted to have with this. And then, in a rollover or whatever, I'll have the molds, and it'll be easy to replace those parts. So that's my plan, and there's a lot of other little things. I figured, not in race condition, but like for playing, there's about at least 300 pounds of weight I can pull off this thing. Between all that tubing, that's about 50 feet of tubing, that 2 pounds a foot that I can get rid of, and then a bunch of other items. Because this thing weighs 2,800 pounds, which is pretty light for an off-road race car, but when you have a 1.3 liter, that's a lot of weight for this thing to pull around. And another thing, cutting up all this front, all this front tubing, getting a lot of that out of my way will free up space for an intercooler, because I still have a turbo I plan on doing in this thing. But with all this tubing in the way, So basically this tube will be gone and this tube will be gone, and that'll clear up some room in front of the radiator. I can put an intercooler and have room for the piping. Right now, I've kind of held off on doing the turbo project because there's just no space. So I'll probably do all that over next winter because I don't want to have this thing down during the sand dune season. For us, is in the summer up here in the Northwest. But so anyway, yeah, I mean, so overall this year's hammers was good. You know, you always wish you do better, but again, couldn't have done it without these guys. They're definitely my biggest help and biggest sponsor. They're a local kind of small company. They do window nets and limit straps and some other stuff. You know, they built my nets. You know, they do them custom per vehicle, and they're super good to work with. They're really good at explaining how to make your patterns. They also built my tire hold down setup. And then, oh, it's hard to see, but my limit straps, they built those as well. And they've been really good to me. They've helped me out with some of the costs induced in racing. And then the next thing is these guys, TRE 4x4 off-road USA. So it's Zepka Customs. I believe he's in Wisconsin. He's the US distributor for these guys. And he hooked me up with a huge discount on this front locker. And then I've actually got a second one. I'm so happy with how the front one worked out in the race that I've ordered a second one to put in the rear. Because this thing is still street legal and I love to drive it during the summer, but nothing ruins a Samurai like a Lockrite on the street. So I can't wait to get rid of that and have an open diff for the road. And then another big plan is, you know, I drive this in the sand a lot, and I have, I run these System 3 SS360s on it. And I really want to put turning brakes on it, because you get in some tight spots in the dunes and this thing really doesn't steer super great. So, you know, if I can find place for it in this little cramped interior, I want to put a set of turning brake handles in there. And I'm going to hopefully do that at the same time I do my, finish up my disc brake conversion for the back with the lightweight Willwood parts. So there's still a lot to do to this thing. It's still got a lot of potential left in it, I think. As far as racing, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm kind of looking at the Vora series. They're in mostly in Nevada, and they seem like a little more low key and lower cost. Good, like grassroots style racing. I like to check that out. King of the Hammers is super cool, but it's almost getting to be too much. It's just so busy and so many races going on now. It's making it kind of hard to even enjoy being there. There's a lot less like free time available where the courses aren't closed down and whatever. I'll probably still go every year to watch, but we'll see. So anyway, thanks for watching. And you know, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more to come with this little thing. You know, still, my goal is to really push the limits of how far you can take a Samurai, and see how it goes. Thanks again.